Thank you so much for joining me for Q&A for North by Current. To reintroduce our guests, we have director and subject of the film, Angelo Madsen Minax, and we have Pam and Fred Fisher, his amazing parents. So thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell us just real quick where you're joining us from? So Pam and Fred, where are you guys joining us from?
We are in the kitchen in Grayling, Michigan.
Thank you for joining us. And what about you, Madsen? Where are you?
I am cozy in my bedroom in Brooklyn, New York.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to start with you, Madsen. Tell us about the genesis of this project. What made you decide to take on this undertaking, and how did the vision of it change over the making of the film?
Sure. First, I just want to say thank you for watching, everyone, and also thank my folks for willing to be here in this Zoom Q&A with me. That's special and exciting, so thanks. Yeah, I mean, the film really unfolded over the course of like 6 years. And I've said before that I really didn't know what shape it was going to take until probably like about a year and a half ago. And so it was really a process of just kind of keeping going, keep shooting. And I'm often working with larger kind of metaphoric or philosophical ideas in lots of my projects. And just thinking through ways that I can weave some of those larger questions about body and spirit and place and time kind of into the fabric of what was happening in my family, and think through all those things kind of in the same place. Yeah, I mean, it was just like a long unfolding process.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the unfolding of the process, one thing, there's so much that I love about your movie, but one thing that I noticed was that with personal documentaries, not all directors are so open with showing their vulnerabilities on camera. And then especially like involving the family into the filmmaking process can be really risky, right? So ultimately, you were able to show in this narrative, not just your, narrative, but also their stories and how it reflects them. It's great how they kind of get to help frame their own perspectives. So, like there's a few scenes where you guys are looking at the footage on your computer and discussing it, before you're actually finishing the project. Mm-hmm. I think that the way that you kind of synthesize all of this is masterful. And I'm wondering if you can talk to the choices you made to achieve this.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was telling somebody this the other day when we were talking about it, but like, I don't think that like, I mean, obviously I'm biased towards my own family, but like, I don't think that I don't think that anyone could make a film with their family and have it kind of work this way. I think a lot of it was just like, we were kind of asking a lot of collective questions. And even if there were ideas being explored that I wasn't overtly saying, okay, we're going to explore this idea now, we were sort of like able to, I don't know, just be really in sync about where exploration was happening. I feel like I was really, I don't know, I wasn't, at least I think, maybe mom and dad disagree, I don't know. I don't think I was up in people's faces with the camera, because to me, that's not an interesting way to be in the world. I wasn't like trying to like get in the middle of drama as much as I was, I don't know, trying to like be more attuned to how we could reflect on the drama as opposed to like be in the middle of it, which I think is one of the things that really separates the film from lots of other documentaries about traumatic experiences. Is it's more of a kind of like a skirting around the experiences and like reflecting on them as opposed to trying to like actually document those experiences. I don't think that is a very useful approach in general, and it's one that I tried to avoid. So, I mean, I filmed a lot, but also I feel like I just knew when to put down the camera too. And I think that was an important part of the work. Lots of writing. I usually am writing a lot for projects anyway, but this one in particular, because the filming was like so long and or over such a long course of time, I think it was really important for me to film and to assemble things and to write about them and to reflect on them. And show my mom and dad some clips, see what they thought. I had my sister look at some clips. She would see what she thought. She was mostly, of course, only concerned about her appearance. But yeah, I mean, I think the like sharing of footage, I don't know, was definitely a way to think about the project as its own kind of entity among us, and something that we were conscious of that was happening, and just to kind of, I don't know, be cognizant of the process.
It shows in the filmmaking that you were very kind of conscious of your subjects, your family. And also I think it shows that, you're very thoughtful. You're a very thoughtful person, it seems. So, and so for Pam and Fred, first, thanks for sharing your family with us. You guys are all so strong, charismatic, and you were very open. So what was it like having a camera in your life during Madsen's project? And what are your reactions to seeing yourself on the film?
It was difficult in the beginning. And like Jesse, we cared about how we looked. And of course, Madsen was great at making sure she caught us at our worst. We always were like, well, we could put makeup on. She goes, no, just be yourself, just go about normal. So that was awkward in the beginning, because you always do care about what you look like on film. But as time went by, we realized that it wasn't really that important. And it almost became so natural and so comfortable that I oftentimes forgot that we were on camera. And Madsen, purposely made it that way and made it very comfortable for us to be open and share. And it was actually an opportunity for us to talk through quite a bit of trauma that had occurred in a really short period of time.
Yeah. And I guess going with that, I'm curious, Madsen, with the writing of this, it was obviously a personal narration that you were doing. Was it hard writing that? And how, like, I guess it must have made you analyze kind of the footage you captured in a way that you maybe wouldn't in another documentary project that isn't necessarily as personal. And can you talk about also the narration being split between your voice and that of the voice that you referred to as the child?
Yeah. The writing of my subjective voice was actually much harder for me than the writing of the child narration. And I think that is because sometimes it's actually just easier for me to think through things in a little bit more of a detached, ethereal nature than it is to actually like position myself subjective in like a subjective, I don't know, in a hard subjective stance. So like writing the subjective VO to feel very like grounded and embodied was a bit of a writing challenge, even though the subjective VO, I think, translates as somewhat off the cuff, which it's supposed to. So I guess that's good. But yeah, I think also just, writing from a perspective that I was like understanding myself as a character, and that, I had to really, because the movie, you can only say so much in an hour and a half. So it's really hard to be able to like get the nuances and complications of someone's whole personhood when you're trying to like create an idea of who someone is. You have to just kind of really kind of compress a lot of things, like distill a lot of information. And I think the thing with the writing was really just working on distilling ideas down into a way that they could be translatable within that time frame of a feature film.
Yeah, I don't even know how you start something like that. So well done. So speaking kind of the depth of, some of these moments in the film, there are some really special moments in the film. This is for all of you guys. There are some really special moments in the film where you are having time together and you're able to discuss some really heavy topics and feelings. Do you think that the making of the film itself helped you get to these difficult conversations quicker than if the project hadn't happened at all? And how did the film change your relationship, if it did at all?
I know it's very gauche to talk about modes of expression in art practice, but like I come from being a songwriter and being a musician, and like heart and feelings are always so like deeply woven in my stuff. Even when it gets to be a little bit more academic, it's still very rooted in affect and like wanting to really invoke an emotive experience. And so that being said, like I think this film, like other work, I really kind of lean into that. And a lot of the projects I work on, I work with my friends a lot. Like I work with my like chosen adult family, like my friendships that I've had a long time. And so it made sense that I would want to work with my birth family too, in some capacity, because the reason I work that way is because I enjoy like the cross pollination of like different layers of relationship. And working within your close relationships always brings new modes of understanding and awareness to the table. And like, I think, yes, the film created a platform and a space for us to talk about things that were hard to talk about in general. And like, I don't know, I think that it definitely did its job in like making a container for a process to unfold. And that's kind of what I was hoping it would do. And I think that's what it did do. And I think that, I mean, my sister and I are closer than we've ever been, for sure. And that's really special to me. And I think all of us have a little bit, I mean, you know, developed together over the course of the making of the film in a way where I just don't think we would have without it. And I also get to, I don't know, I get to like, when I'm working, I really get to like bring my whole self and my brain and my heart to the table in different ways that I feel like are, is nice to share with my loved ones.
Yeah. What about you, Pam and Fred? Any thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is that if we would have been talking to somebody making a movie that we didn't know, the difference with speaking with Madsen was our hearts were relaxed, even though we were hurting so bad. We knew he was hurting too. And I think it made a big difference in how we approached this whole project. He felt the same pain we did, as well as taking the opportunity to share this experience that how people can deal with this type of tragedy in their life.
Yeah. One of the quotes that you have at the end of the film that I really love is the Jane Austen quote where it says, "If I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more." And I think that kind of sums up a lot of what you guys are saying. And it's a really powerful quote. And I think, you know, you talked about your film being a rumination. And I think that's one of the things that is great about it is it's very relatable, even though it's a very specific story, right? It's like your story, but it's a relatable story because everybody has their own family.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess I'm curious, you played this film at a number of festivals at this point, Berlin and Tribeca. With films that explore issues such as North by Current does, it's not unlikely that people have their own stories that they want to relate to you about it. And I'm just curious if you've had any reactions to your film where people are kind of sharing their stories, and have you been surprised by any of the ways that people have been connecting with your film?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of, so I think it is like weird to do this, but like, you know, we're pre-recording this. So like, and I haven't been with any audiences in person yet, which is hard and weird, but is what it is. So I don't have a lot to go on yet with responses to things. But I have had a couple of folks reach out to me, like young trans people that have like been super excited to see something a little more nuanced that they can kind of see themselves in, and that's not actually about transitioning, but is about sort of just being a person in the world and navigating other facets of your life. So that's been nice. And I think, yeah, I'm sure more of those conversations will happen, and I'm excited to have them as they do. It's definitely interesting to feel like, you know, I feel like audiences are getting a very kind of special glimpse into the inner workings of a family, but also are sort of like and I feel like this is with my team too, kind of like have a, I don't know, have access to my brain in some way that is separate from me. And I think part of that's true and interesting, but also to me, it's important to remember that like for an audience that like, that's me as a character and in this movie occupying a very specific role. And it's only a sliver of my experience. And I guess, I don't know, I guess that's important because even though everything is real, it's still important for me to always draw attention to artifice and the way that we've sculpted a film in an environment. Right. And that people are really getting like the minutia of what's going on.
Yeah. Speaking of minutia, one of the things that I think, people really kind of come away from this film thinking about is, all those tiny aspects, the ways that you guys are interacting with the criminal justice system throughout the film. And I'm curious, like having dealt with that for so many years, you're in your own story. What are some of the takeaways that your family has from their experience kind of with the prisons and courts? And like, are there anything that you wish other people knew about kind of the criminal justice system from your perspectives? This goes for any of you, but yeah, Madsen, if you want to start.
Sure. As my dad likes to say, you can't trust anyone. I feel like that's his takeaway. But yeah, I mean, like we've talked about this a lot, but the system is flawed, and we all know this. It's not built to do what it purports to do, and so there's we could talk about hours about abolition culture, but I really chose to not go that direction in the film, to keep it centered on family. And I think a lot of that was because our conversations about that got so like cyclical and big and swirling and political in a way that was really hard to reconcile with the interpersonal. But yeah, I don't know, Mom and Dad, if you want to say anything about.
That was probably one of the most difficult pieces of this journey for me. I'm not sure about Dad, and simply because, I always was a believer in the right and always felt like that was represented by prosecutors and police and investigators and detectives. And so experiencing lies within a system, reading reports and knowing that they were not truths and were coming from these people that held high positions was devastating for me. And what that has done now is it has really weakened my trust in that system. And I will see things or I hear things and I immediately think, well, that might be true, but that might not be true. And that's a good way to think. And it's unfortunate that something so traumatizing had to happen for me to really realize that there are good and there are bad in every system. And we just came across several bad in that system, but we're blessed by our Heavenly Father and our God to direct really good people into our lives that help us resolve this in a way in which peace was brought, as much as peace can be brought into someone's life after they experience this.
It's beautifully put. Thank you.
I think it also kind of like speaks to like, our position in the world that like, we are lucky in that like, my parents have gotten to live long lives before experiencing something like this, but other people are experiencing these to an imminent degree more intense than we are. And so I think it's moments like that help to bring clarity and understanding and recognition that, especially for communities that don't have the access points and resources that we do, that like, this is real.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the way that your family goes through the process and your story specifically, I think, it helps people learn a little bit more about the system in a very specific way that then they can extrapolate into kind of the more universal system. I mean, it's not unlike, how, the Black Lives Matter movement is, like you have George Floyd and that case that just, thankfully went in the direction of Chauvin being convicted. But it woke a lot of people up who maybe had never experienced or never really understood white privilege in a certain way, right? So you have people who are now waking up to these sort of realities of the unfortunate truths about our criminal justice system and the people who are in charge and the people who are getting to tell their stories and who doesn't get to tell their stories. So yeah. I think it's really amazing that you get to tell your story here.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, we get to survive all these traumas because I can't imagine, we have access, resources, education, we have all these things to be able to survive this story and tell the story. And I think that is important to bring to attention, because for every story that gets told, there's, a bajillion that don't because they can't. Yeah. So
exactly. So on a little bit of a lighter note, this is something that I was curious about. Like the first time I watched the film, one of the things that I loved about it was the way that you use music and the way that it kind of, you have the room music, the music that's in the room and the scene, and then you kind of bring it into integrating it with kind of the background music. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious a little bit about, kind of how you chose the music. Did the music choose you as it just kind of happened in scenes? And, tell us a little bit about the story that you're telling with the music.
For me, I'm often working with the soundscape and the composing at the same time I'm working in the cut of the edit. So it's not uncommon for those things to be kind of unraveling at the same time and for the pace to be informing each other. My composer, Julian Baker, is brilliant. And she just I knew she would be brilliant, but she's never done a score before. I think she's 25.
Wow.
And, she's got 3 records under her belt at Matador Records. So she's like a powerhouse. So I think part of it was just the film really resonated with her. But she was so amazing to work with and so open to me remixing a lot of what she was working on. So she would send me stems and open tracks, and I would kind of do mixes and translate things. And we had a really great, easy process there. In terms of a lot of the actual song selections, a lot of that, a lot of the punk songs are from friends, my dear friends' bands, because I was a touring musician for a long time. So I like to use lots of music from my friends. But a lot of the songs were actually embedded in what was going on in scenes. And a lot of there's a couple of 2 or 3 different kind of doo-wop era songs that for me really kind of conjure this sort of Americana emblematic, I don't know. Yeah, just Americana. And those are really embedded in the footage, and they're in the VHS, they're in the radio stuff. And so some of the song choices are meant to kind of help bolster that and position it. But also, with some of the song choices, I was really thinking about the radio station that I used to listen to when I was a kid, and it's the radio that's playing in the car a lot. It's UPS. It's a classic rock station, still playing music. But so I was kind of letting the vibe of the radio station influence some of that. So it's doing Americana and doo-wop and country music and punk music, but it's also bridging this sort of iconic classic rock vibe, which for me also kind of goes along with the idea of the road trip, or the sort of motif of being on the road, which the film is obviously uses the symbology of rivers and water to think through time and change, but also the road is, the metaphoric journey, and the kind of going and returning. So yeah, just trying to create some cohesive metaphors in the mix of so much large floating stuff.
Yeah, it's a great mix, and I think it really kind of helps tie the film together. And I wish we had more time to talk. Unfortunately, we have to end, but I'm really excited for you guys to be able to have some live screenings, hopefully in the next year, and get that audience interaction, because it's obviously a totally different experience. And so, you know, I think you guys are going to have a great future with this film. It's exciting and it's wonderful.
Thanks so much.
And thank you. Yeah. And so thanks all of you for being here with us today. And I just want to remind our audience to please tell your friends to watch North by Current. The film is available to screen throughout the festival. And we'd love to hear from you on our social media. So hashtag AFIDOCS. Do you guys have a hashtag or anything you want to share? Or
hashtag North by Current.
There you go. Hashtag North by Current. So that's a way that you can interact with Madsen and the team. And join us for more great films and virtual events, and find ways to interact with us at docs.afi.com. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.